I tried to open the broadcast, gave me like a weird error. Um, so guys, what we got going on here, guys? This is now recording on YouTube, so we will get started. So, as you guys know, in BotJok, we do create our own indicators. We create our own buy-sell signals. Um, all kinds of tools. We have our ATAs, and our goal when we create these indicators is not just to throw out any indicator. When we create these indicators, we want it to be special, right? We want it to have a purpose, um, to help people who may have trouble seeing things like patterns or divergence or gap fill, right? Like we talk about a lot. You guys know I love trading the gaps. So we had a couple ideas we put together on how to create this, right? And we didn't want to just make it something that you can search for any free gap fill type indicator, right? We wanted to make it special, so we put in a lot of different algorithms into this to kind of help you guys with the visual. So I'm going to try to show you guys here so you can see on the screen. TikTok, not sure if you can see that, it might be a little blurry, but I'm going to show you guys, here you can see these are all our own indicators. It's this new one's called BotJok Gap Fill Sniper. I did overlay it with the zone tracker, which the zone tracker is pretty sick within itself. So let me get that set up for you guys again. So let me walk through the concept of what we tried to build here. So in our room, we do talk about scalping a lot, right? We want to get in, we want to get out. At the end of the day, gaps, they always fill, and whether it's on a short time frame, a long time frame, keep in mind the shorter time frame is going to play out a little faster, the longer time frame is going to play out a little longer, and the longer time frame may have a little more dramatic move to it, right? So but the concept is, we're finding a lot of people struggle to determine how to find that gap. So we took together a bunch of tools, right, and some algorithms, and added it through our code. So you're going to identify some moves here, right? And so these moves are basically identifying large volume moves that don't really make sense. And so those type of moves typically fill. And so, when you come back in the history of it, right, as we were moving up, you had a large volume, didn't make sense, came up, right? You had one here, it filled. You had two here that filled. The concept of these boxes, and we'll go through each little part of this indicator, but the concept of the boxes is, on a white one, we are bullish. The gap fill needs to come back and reclaim it, the lower part of it. Until it reclaims the lower part, it's not reclaimed. So like right here, we reclaimed a little bit of it, but it did not fully reclaim it until it reclaimed it here. So once you get this candle or this wick that exceeds that bottom part of it, that is considered now gone, right? This one's done, it's complete. Now we have this one still to fill. Let me let you in here. Hey Joel, so we're just going through this. I'm gonna keep rolling. I'm on TikTok as well and recording it on Trading View. So when you have this gap fill here, you can see this one is complete, but we have not completed this one and we not completed this one, right? And you can see how that, over time, right, it ended up coming down and completed it, right, over time. And so same thing here, right? You have this one that showed, which has completed it. Now we have this one that still never got completed, and a little bit here. Now if it's a little bit, the odds of it, going back to completed may take some time, right? But when you have a big gap like this, we're likely to get those. Now keep in mind, we are creating some here, right? So we may come up and then back down to complete these before we come back up and get that. Gap fills take time. You still have to play your patterns, your support, your resistance, all that. So that's what I love about overlaying the zone tracker, because you get the 200 EMA and you get the green and red, right, to give you your kind of visible range. So you're able to play that range while playing these gaps. So the same concept for the purple is the same as the white. It's just reverse, right? So it's in a downtrend, it's going to display a purple one. Now you want to clear the top, not the bottom, right? It has to clear the top. So think in the downtrend, we're coming back up, we have to clear the top. in an uptrend, we have to clear the bottom, right? Now, once a wick, even so much as a wick crosses this, then it is considered complete. So this is considered complete, right? And you can come back, and this works on higher time frames, like even here, right? This is considered complete. Look how it played out perfectly. Came back and it got it. So that just kind of explains a little bit about how that works. So, sorry, these allergies is killing me with my throat here, so I apologize for that. But so kind of moving into a little bit more, right? So we wanted to make, again, like this indicator a little more special, right? So we added some volume down here, right? So it is pre-built in, so you can see where the volume, spiked, and then you can see it shift to green, and you can see the red is getting smaller. Just gives you a little indication that, the bears gave it their all. Anytime you give a big push like that, typically that doesn't hold, right? So I'm going to show you something really cool. One, we added like a visible range style chart here. This visible range, you guys, we're going to have free education up probably later today or tonight on our site to explain how to trade visible range. But it's a good way to identify where most of the price action is happening. This is where bulls and bears are going to fight, right? Once you get into the lower ones, like right here, right, these smaller ones, that's typically where you get those breakouts, because that's where the momentum is up and the bears are not necessarily interested in trying to fight that yet. If you notice here where they start to come out a little bit, this is where the bears say, okay, we're more inclined to try to fight you up here, right? And that's why you're seeing these rejections come off, right? So that's how you can kind of play that. Now, if the bulls can push you past this, right, and still hold this trend, then you're likely to see another large volume candle up to about here, which is where that is. Now you have the 200 EMA, right? So we may see a push up here, then the bears step in and say, right? It also gives you a clear definition of the lower and upper line. You do have a point of control line. The point of control line is going to be wherever the largest area of interest is. So currently, for the amount of candles that we're pulling back here, the largest area of interest is here. So why is that important? So that's important because we may get an explosion north here. This may not be enough, right? They're not super interested. Actually, if you look, it's less interested, right? So if we get that explosion past here, we know the bears are they're holding their ground here. So if they can pass this, right, the CMA, it's almost guaranteed you're coming up to here. And this is where you would take your short or close your long, right? So that's kind of how you play that point of control line. On top of that, as if that's not already cool enough for the indicator, you have these little hashes here that they're basically following the candle progression. They're kind of boxing it. So let me talk about how to play that. So if you look here, you got a white fractal. Anytime you get an explosive candle that pushes you outside of this range and you get a bullish rejection, right? That is a signal that says, hey, we're probably going to reverse at least temporarily and come after this gap fill. So once it broke here, when the blue is on the top, right, because up here, see our blue is bullish, that means that the trend is now shifting bullish. So this tells you that we have a signal reverse, a gap fill to go, and we have another thing that it also tells you, which I'm going to show you here in a second, which was super sick. And we have this zone tracker telling you that we're off of support. So everything in here is telling you take that long. We actually put it out in the room. I said, hey guys, like it's all telling you to go long, take that long. As if that's not cool enough, right? I'm going to show you guys real time. So you see these percentages up here? This is actual real data that is measuring volume over the last so many specified candles, and so it's telling you in the last, design specified candles, the bulls are winning 56% to 43%. So the trend is strong north. But remember, this is a gap fill indicator. That is a good thing because it tells you that if you were to take this long here, right, the bulls are winning and they're continuing to win. But the further this gets away, notice how it just flipped right here? it actually tells you, hey, these numbers are getting too far away. There's a potential gap fill coming where the bears are going to step in and pull that back, right? So you have a possible bearish gap fill. If I'm in a long, I may want to close that, right? And let me kind of show you how this played out. So you all know I love this replay on here. So we're going to come back to about here. And this is how you test it. So now, if you notice, our indicator has 61% bearish, 38. It's super dramatic. When that number is too far apart, whatever the lower number is, they're gonna step in. They always do, right? And all the back testing we've done, that is literally the definition of gap fill. So we just added this to it on our latest version. And so you can see how back here, it already called this bullish gap fill. It said, hey, keep up, you have some bullish gap fill coming, right? So let's play this out. So when you come through, right, you did have a little drop down, but we're still holding as a bullish gap fill, right? We did get our fractal, right? We did get our flip to blue. So anywhere in this range, right, you could take that long because you have a fractal, you have, right, and these fractals are gonna, because this line's right here moves with the candles, right? Any candle that exceeds out of here will throw this fractal. So you don't necessarily trade the fractal. This fractal is confirmation saying, hey, your trend is shifting, right? So if everything else tells you you're bullish, right here on this candle tells you you're bullish. This populated saying you're bullish. We know we have 2 gap fills to come get. We have bullish gap fill potential. Our range is stupid separated. You might want to take that long, right? And so when you take that long, you come through, you can kind of see how that plays out. Now, how do you know when to close this long, right? That's the question of the day. You're still far away. We're still 15% or so separation, right? And so when this percentages begins to close that gap, or this flips bearish, it tells you when to close it. So now you're gonna hold this, right? Now we're real-time data, right? And see right there, so it kicked me out because we're real-time. You would close it right there, right? Because you've closed the gap and it actually flipped it. See, now the bulls are winning. And look at how that called it. So you literally would have closed it up at this peak, right? And so now you see this is shifting. So if the bears can drive it back into this range, we're likely to come down to retest to fill this gap. So I hope that makes sense, guys. I'm recording this. If you guys are on TikTok and you're like over my head, if you go to our YouTube, ATA_trader, you guys, I am recording this on YouTube for those of you guys in the community. This will be added into the playlist there for the community events. So you guys can watch this back as well. So let's just kind of back up a little bit. So we have these determining where the gap fill needs to go. We've already completed one. So we still have to get another one. So although this is flipping bearish, right? If you wanted to scalp this short, you could scalp it down to these gap fills, watching these percentages. If these percentages start to tighten, you may want to close it, right, for a quick scalp. Then you see this flip back bullish, right? We get our fractal. It breaks this plane, right? Anytime it breaks this plane and then it comes back, gets that fractal, it's telling you the trend is going north, right? And this is the percentages we added was just more of like a confirmation. It's a way for you to not have to really calculate the data or the candle volume history. It literally is going to continuously calculate it for you, which is so freaking cool. And look at it. It's just playing out like right in front of your eyes, right? So now how do we manipulate this, right? This is only counting the candles as far back as this goes right here. So we do have the ability, we've given you the ability to change your colors if you don't like the colors, which is fine, and to change these numbers. Now, this is what I find works best on the 5 minute. The default, we're gonna set it at 100. 5 and 15 work better on 50, I've found. Whereas 1 minute and 2 minute work better on 100 because you got to go a little farther back. But if you change this here, see how now the lines go back farther, right? And it changes that result. See how now it's 54 to 45, bears are winning. It's not really bullish divergence. It's not bearish, or not divergence, gap fill. It's not bearish to gap fill, right? So the further back you go, the more picky it's going to be here. So I say that because if you're swing trading, if you want to do a longer time trade, but you want to use a 5 minute, you can pull older data to wait for that real big dramatic move, right? If you want to be patient with it. If you're a scalper like myself, right, you may want to pull these candles in like that. And then now you're only looking at real-time data. It's saying the bulls are winning. And you can see the gap fill, playing out right in front of you, right? And so now you also have to keep in mind, although we have a bearish gap fill, we are still low on the range, right? We still have a lot of room that we can go up. And that's where, you also want to use your other TA. We do have an EMA. We do have a bearish, pattern playing around, right? So it's not a bad overall call. We did not get a fractal, but it's okay, right? You have, in this one indicator, guys, like let me mute this one. This is the zone tracker. In this one indicator, you have literally, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Confirmation things plus 6. You have 6 things that you can do to confirm what this market's going to do. And so if 4 or 5 of the 6 say, hey, you're good to go this way, it's probably good to go that way, right? And you can see, it's still, even if you did take this trade rejection off here when it flipped bearish, right, 28,930 down to 28,860. You're in profit right now. You're right at fees or so you would need to complete down to this gap fill, right? But you're right there. So and again, watch these percentages because each candle that closes, it's going to update these percentages. It's calculating that new close to tell you, hey, is there a shift in the market? So just to recap how to read these percentages, it is not, bulls are winning, let me go long, or bears are winning, let me go short. It is a gap fill indicator. This is determining you want to chase the opposite direction. You want to say the gap is huge. If you get about a 30% gap from these, it's almost guaranteed something is coming back, right? And you're going to have that possible gap fill up there. And so when you get to that far separation, and let's say you're 30% separation and you take that short, right, because the bulls are winning by a lot, now that percentage gets to about 15 or 10, you might want to consider closing that short, right? So let's go back and let's analyze some more data, right? So let's go back into this area here. So we'll start here and we'll just kind of show you. And this is how you guys can test it. Any indicators we have, right? You just use replay, pull it back and test it. So you can see currently, let's stretch this out. Not that much. Okay. So you see currently, right, bears are winning, bulls are not, right? But there's nothing really clearly showing you there's a gap fill in play. So let's go ahead and I'm going to speed it up, but I'm going to try to stop it when I see something call. So let's just wait until we get a bullish or bearish, right? Okay, there it is. All right, so now we have our first call. So we have a bullish gap fill possible, right? We have our fractal. I was a little late on it, right? So it called it probably somewhere in here because it was going really fast. So this even would have been a good scalp. But let's see how this would have played out. So if you entered your long, right? So you're still holding on. You're still holding on. Now the percentages are starting to tighten, right? Even here you still see them starting to tighten. So you could close your trade there if you're scalping. Now if you're a long term, as long as this stays bullish like that, right, you know that the sentiment is likely still up. So you could potentially hold that trade. Now look, it's flipped to bearish temporarily, right? So if you entered down here, from here, 27,818 to 28,1 something, right? That's a $300 trade if you did one BTC. So we'll just continue to let that play. Let's see. Comes through, right? And what I wanted to show you here, right? Notice we entered the bearish here, And technically, because remember we're on shorter time frame, right? This is 28,100. We got all the way down to 27,900. That's a $200 trade. So notice how close these are. Like it's going a little fast, so it's hard to do, right? But notice how close these percentages get, right? So because they're so close and you're bouncing off of your range here, you would want to close that short scalp, right? And so let's just keep letting this play out. So we have our bearish, gap fills in play, right? So it's still driving up a little bit, right? We're still driving up. Remember, gap fills don't always play out instantly. And so you can see the range is playing out, but look at this. You guys see that? Right there, right? So we started our bearish gap fill up here, here, coming through, right? And then it's still played out through there. So you still, now, and keep in mind, it's gonna stay a bearish gap fill until it flips to bullish gap fill. So, you could say, okay, well, it may have called it here and it got down here, but it did pump up a little bit, right? To me, the way I'm gonna trade this is I'm a scalper. I'm gonna say, okay, possible gap fills bearish, I'm going to take shorts. So I will take a short, I will take a short, because keep in mind, let me go back here. Anytime that this breaks out of this range, right, you could take a short scalp. This is a $250 movement off of a bearish confirmation, right? So it's still a good scalp, because remember, we're on the 5 minute. So let's wait for the next break above. Okay, so we had a break above here, right? Comes down, you have another movement, 28,850 down to 28,612. It's another great scalp, right? You didn't get a fractal, but what'd you get? You got a switch in the trend. And you're off of your resistance line, right? See how this chases these gaps, right? And it just basically appears in there. And you can see as it comes through, right? So now we're not bearish or bullish, so let's see where the next one pops, and we'll pause it. Okay, so we have possible bullish gap fill. Okay, so bearish gap fill played, because it filled, right, and played out perfectly. Now we're possible bullish gap fill, so let's see how that plays. And I don't even remember how the candles played, but already we're a win, because it called it here. 459, we're up $300, right? The percentages are about 10% away. And then you can see right here, right, it falls. So there's a few, this is why I want to show this stuff, right? So this is why we put a multitude of things here. So you have the bullish gap fill, which played out perfect, right? Look at this side. When it hits up on this, right, the same previous peak, consider that got filled, right? It already reclaimed this one. There's no more left, right? So when you're playing that bullish gap fill, it's done. This candle cleared this side here. Not only that, you have resistance here. You have a double top here, right? You're going to use all your tools that you have available. Now, it didn't quite call this bearish gap fill, but that's okay. Now, if I'm scalping, what would I do? If I know that there's a bullish and I closed it here, let's say I missed this short, because you're not going to get all of them. And you decide to try to take a long down here from this break here. You have a gap fill here. Now, we are bullish, but this right here is still purple. It hasn't quite flipped, right? So let me slow it down just a little bit. Let's see where that flips. There you go. So you got your flip, right? You got your fractal. And let's see how this one plays out. There it goes. Gap filled, right? You have another one up here a little bit, but either way, you took your long here, right, in this area, because of the flip, right? Because this is gonna repaint, guys, because it does follow the candles. The concept is not to, that's why we keep this so small, right? It's not to dwell into what it did back here. You're playing it real time as it goes, right? But either way, you're in that long. And look at how that bullish gap fill played. Nailed it. So now, let's keep playing it. Let's see when it flips bearish, and then we'll stop. All right, so we got a bearish gap fill. So we have a breakout of the range here. We're way above the visible range, right? I mean, it broke into a whole new stratosphere. We have a gap fill down here that's got to play. You got your bearish gap fill. So technically, if you took it here when the bearish gap fill flipped 29,163, this is 29,939. That's still a really good movement, right? So you could already be in profit, but let's see if it comes down and gets this this gap here. We're just kind of trading sideways. Now the key is, oh, there it is. See that? It took a long time, right? But it played. So the key is, notice how this got it. Boom, gap is filled. You close that trade, right? Close that short. Now you're waiting for another breakout because see now technically you have a long right here potential, right? But this may say go long, right? But this is still, the bears are winning and we're not really quite in a gap fill yet. So it's saying it could go flip up north, but it's more risky, right? So let's just keep playing it. I'll tighten up the screen once we get to another. Look how sideways this is. It's crazy. So we're still bearish, right? It still has not technically flipped to bullish. Okay, so now we're starting to flip to bullish here. And notice the separation, how big it's getting, right? Right from there. The key is that separation is what you want to look at. Now look at this. I think this was, we were in news. So let's see how it handles the news, right? Because the news was there. But either way, look, it's bullish. We did have a pullback because of the news, but it still played out. It still called it. That's still a great scalp. Even better. Shoot, I paused it too soon. So think about how that called that, right? It told you to stay bullish because we have a gap fill coming north. The market makers kicked in, they wiped their stop losses, and then they reversed it on you. Does that make sense, guys? Let's see you guys walking. Hopefully you guys on TikTok. But guys, these are our own indicators we create at BotJok. This one is a very, very gap fill specific indicator. My favorite to do for those in the community, you guys watching this recording, is to overlay this with the zone tracker. The reason why, the zone tracker doesn't play nice with a lot of indicators, but this one it really does. And so I'm going to take the skull and the sun off. They're really good indicators too, but just to keep the visual simple. So I want you to zoom out and you can kind of see how it started to show you green support right here too, right? So even when you had your bullish gap fill, you also noticed it was also off of green support, right? Now you're coming into a red resistance, you know, so let's see if that pushes it up or if it flips bearish. Now we haven't quite bearish gap fill displayed yet, right? So it's still showing that we could potentially be bullish. There has not flipped enough to call it bearish. So we just play through. Now we have the bearish. Look at it, it was so fast. It called the bearish right before it, if you guys saw how fast that was. But look at how the zone tracker played this, right? Played it off. It flipped it bearish right here. I paused it just late. And then that candle ended up popping in. You can see, you know, it's still continuing the bearish gap fill, and there it goes. Look at that. Now it flipped bullish, right? We're getting closer to green, right? Now it's finding its support. And look at that. Back up it goes. It's pretty sick, guys. I'm telling you, we put in so much work. This thing has so much line of code. It is going to be game changing. This is on the 5 minute. I find that it's working best on the 5 minute, and with these settings, with the 50. Now, if you want to trade it on like a 1 minute, you would take 100 and you go to the 1 minute like this, right? And you can see the bulls are starting to win. But again, guys, I want to remind you, this does not say, hey, take a long. What this is telling you is that you want this separation. You want them to continue to win, right? Because you've already missed the train. When this starts to separate more than, you know, 8%, something like that, you've already missed the train. Could it go higher? Sure. It tends to reverse around between 12 and 15% range If you get into like 30, it's coming down. Like back test it as much as you want. It's almost like 98, 99% chance it's coming down. It's ridiculous. So, but that's what you guys want to look at, guys. It's kind of a multitude of things. Again, this is live right here. You can see, we have a rejections off here that played off perfectly. You got your fractals live that played off perfectly. If you're trading the 1 minute, we are heavy on the bull, but not quite heavy enough to call it bearish. You do have a somewhat of a bearish pattern forming, and we still have a gap fill to come down here, right? But you can see how that keeps you safe. It is a game of patience, right? And look at that burst north, and see we're getting into this area, right, where it's a little less. So you might get even more of a push, and so you might want to take your short somewhere around here. But you want these big blue ones, right? Because when you get too far away separation here, you want this to get up to a high enough percent that you're safe to take that short and ride it back down. Like again, the concept of this indicator is to not trade the trend, but to identify that reversal, right? And so it's going to identify this reversal, and that's what it's helping you do. So to keep you safe. So I hope that helps you guys out. TikTok, I'll leave you guys on here for a minute. As far as community goes, I'm going to stop the YouTube so you guys, can kind of watch that. But primary focus is visible range. We'll do some more education on that. And then these boxes for the gap fills. This works on any time frame that you want to go to. Doesn't really matter. So here's the 1 hour. You can see, it's worked out perfect. Just bottom, top, bottom. I mean, it just has nailed it, right? You had this gap fill even in this crash, came back and got it. This gap fill came back and got it. This gap fill came back and mostly got it. Got this one, got that one. It still has this one lingering. It did complete this one, but we completed this one right here. So there's no more left on the southern side to chase. We have no more gap fills. We do have a gap fill up here to chase, right? And with the way our trend line is, it may very well play out. We may come up, capture this one before going back down. So just keep that in mind. I will be trading this thing every single day when I trade Monday through Friday. Study it, guys. You just simply hit replay, come back, click your mark you want to replay on, and then you guys can study these rules and see how you would have played that. But I hope that helps you guys out. I'm gonna go ahead and stop this, and then TikTok I'll be on for